Hello, lovely ladies. It's Jo here, the founder of One of Many, and welcome to Lunch and Learn Live for this, the 23rd of March. It is a big day today here in the UK. It is 1 year since they announced lockdown, our first lockdown last year. Whether it was a little earlier where you were in France or Italy or China or anywhere, or if it was a little later where you were, we're coming up to this kind of odd annual anniversary where we're going to be looking at, challenges that have been facing us for over a year. And that's an interesting and difficult time to bring some awareness to. But I think we need to mark it, even though what we are marking is profound and deep and challenging. So that's what we're going to have a chat today about. We're going to mark the anniversary, or the just about anniversary, depending on where in the world you are, of the arrival of coronavirus and the moment that our government's actually kind of stepped up to do something about it in some places. And have a bit of a look back over the year together. So as you arrive, first of all, say hello. Let me know where in the world you are. And, as always, what is for lunch? Excuse me for one moment while I just get a tissue. My nose has been a little runny today. Welcome wherever in the world you are. Alison is in sunny Buckinghamshire. Where else have we got? What's for lunch out there? I had prawns and spring greens and an egg for lunch today. It was very yummy, actually. Very yummy indeed. And I've now got my Earl Grey tea to see me through the afternoon. Where in the world are you all? Do say hello and let me know where you are. Oh, Vix is having spaghetti bolognese. She's just up the road. I know where she is. Hi, Alex in Leicestershire having chicken soup. Sheila is in the scorching heat of Cape Town. Oh, wow. So still scorching in Cape Town, huh? Sunny in Eli too, says Caroline, having fish pie. Debbie is not so sunny, Surrey, having soup. Aisha is in Birmingham with leftover pasta. Jean is in sunny Withensea with a salad and crusty bread. Yum. Pilar is in Huesca in Spain, having vegetables and fish. Yum, yum. Oh, I love living vicariously through your lunch choices, ladies. Yes, I do. So as I said right at the top of the call today, it is 1 year since the UK government announced lockdown, and today has been kind of posted as a national day of reflection here in the UK where I live. I know we are a truly international community and we have women from all over the world. We have lots of women whose governments put them in lockdown much earlier than that, and some whose governments put us in lockdown much later than that, and some who didn't ever really do lockdown at all. And so we're all in differing situations, I appreciate. But it felt like a really good time to actually pause and reflect on just how monumental a year this has been. We have seen things this year that we never thought that we would see. I certainly didn't ever think that I would see. I've had to think about and strategize and plan for things that I never imagined that I would be having to strategize and plan and imagine. And I'm sure that is the situation at your end as well. And it has been a huge year of loss for so many of us, so many. We've had many women in our community who have lost loved ones as part of the coronavirus pandemic, or lost loved ones and not been able to mourn or grieve their loss because of the restrictions associated with the pandemic, even though if the loss itself wasn't related to the pandemic. We have had women in our community who've lost their liberties and their freedom, who've not been able to leave their homes, and have been more or less, under house arrest, if you like, for the better part of a year. We've had women in our community who've lost relationships, whose relationships have ended because of the extra stress of this year. Women in our community who've had, who've lost jobs, been made redundant, whose entire businesses have disappeared. We've had women in our community whose losses are just the loss of the plan for the future, which can be, or the ability to plan for the future. So it has been a huge year of loss, and I think we need to talk a bit about grief. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of us, I think, in the community might be feeling grief and not talking about it. So my question for those of you who are on the call today is, if you slow yourself down just for a moment, right? And I know usually you come to my Lunch and Learn lives and we're upbeat and positive. And today, it's not about not being upbeat and positive. It's about recognizing that with all of our, momentum and external focus, we also have to take a moment to dig in and reflect internally. This year has turned so many of our lives on its head. And a lot of us aren't giving ourselves time and space to reflect on that. So if you give yourself this time and space, just for the duration of 10, 15 minutes as we chat here together today, to pause and to reflect, what do you have to let go of? What have you had to let go of? Have you lost loved ones? Have you lost a job? What has been lost to you? Because I want to talk about the nature of grief a little bit today. And it's something that is a bit of a theme actually this week. Next Monday night in our Living the Change community, I am hosting the Silver Masterclass call with a dear friend of mine, Tracy Evanishan, who I met on Necker Island a couple of years back, and who is an extraordinary woman, has multiple amazing businesses. But is also, one of the things I love about her is that in her workspaces, she makes space for grief. She makes space for these emotions that we don't give ourselves time and energy for. And she's going to be coming to have a chat to us about the importance of loss and grief and how to be with it and how to lead teams that are full of it. Because even if you haven't had a loss over this last year, there are people around you that have. They might be your neighbors, they might be your extended family members, they might be, people that you work with, people in this community that you love and that you know. It might be, it could be people who are in the teams that you're leading. And so we need to mark it. We need to take a moment to take a breath and go, okay, what is it? What is it in your situation, right? So I'm interested, I really want to hear the answer to this, ladies. What, as you look over the last year, have you had to release, let go of, or has been taken from you? I know as I look back over this last year, I feel blessed on the one hand that close to me, there's been no loss of life. In my family and my friends, anyone who has had coronavirus has recovered from it. A couple of my team members had it very, very badly, but recovered. And in my immediate family, there was no loss of life. But I am very present to the huge number of women who over the year in our community have lost loved ones. And while I can't even, come close to feeling their pain, I feel the echoes of it in the posts that we've had in the B1 Global community over this last year. The posts that we've had in the Change Forum and the Hearth in our other members kind of communities, and a recognition that there has been loss of life, coronavirus or otherwise. And that has been hard for a lot of people. For me, if I look at it at a personal level, with that gratitude that hasn't been present, there has still been a lot of loss, I am an Australian who lives in the UK and runs an organisation in the UK. And my family are all in Australia. My husband is Australian as well, and his family are all in Australia. And Australia closed its borders, and we have not been able to travel. Now, yes, theoretically it's possible. We could drag our kids over there and quarantine for 2 weeks in a hotel room without leaving the hotel room, and eventually maybe get 4 flights on the same plane to do it. But we're not in a hurry to do that, to be honest, for all sorts of fairly obvious reasons, I would think. But what has been, I guess how it lands, in terms of loss for me over this last year, has been a loss of that feeling of freedom that we always had. Greg and I would always look at each other in the past and say, look, if anything ever happened, if one of our parents got sick or If someone needed us back home, we'd jump on a plane and one of us would be there within 24 hours and the other one would organize the kids and maybe be there within 48 or 72 hours. And that isn't possible anymore. It's a loss of that freedom to be with family. Really be with family. And I've also noticed over the past year, and I share this not to kind of come and have a cry with you, but I hope to, pause, help you to have a moment to pause and look at what's real and true for you. For me, the other thing that I'm present to is the loss of the depth of my relationships with my family. I need FaceTime with my mum to have that depth. I need FaceTime with my sisters to have that depth. And there's been a lot of changes in the dynamics in our family relationships. My dad would have been over to visit. My little girl turned 4 yesterday, and someone would have been here under normal circumstances. Mum or dad or a sister might have come over to spend some time and celebrate. We had a cute little party for Rosie yesterday. Me, Greg, our lovely nanny Lorna, who helps us, and James and Rose, because that's of course all we could have. And there was my sister Kath posted on the page saying, "Oh, lockdown party." We had a ball. My kids hardly noticed, to be honest, which I found fascinating. But for me, there was a sort of a grief after that of these odd moments that we're living through. There were plans that, and then they're down to the mundane things, which, they're not active in my life and I don't grieve them anymore. But there was a sailing holiday to Greece planned for last year that I would have loved to have done. Maybe hopeful that it will happen this year, but, whatever. There was the loss of the year that was planned in terms of the organization and the growth, which again, I don't mourn, but I have had to release, I have had to let go. And so that's, as I look over the year and I take pause, that's kind of what's there for me. That's what's there for me. And that is nothing compared to the immense amount that so many of you, so many women in our community have missed. So let me hear from a few of you. So Jean is saying, I've been incredibly lucky not to lose anyone in the pandemic, but I felt incredibly guilty for getting off lightly. I guess I need to let go of the guilt. Yeah, but also there's that loss of innocence, isn't there? Right? There's that loss of innocence that I think we're all present to. I noticed this at the moment. I'm running something called the Virtual Wobble Room for women in our community who are workers in the NHS. And about once a week, we come together and I just hold space, a listening space for them to come and share about the challenges that they're facing, because it is immense in the healthcare system at the moment. Monumentally intense. These are women who have lost colleagues, who have lost, lost huge amounts of their staffing and are really running on fumes in terms of the organisation. And what I am present to, a bit like you, Jean, every time I show up to one of those is that, wow, how lucky I am. How lucky I am to not be in that situation and not experience this much. But there is this loss of innocence that is there, this inability to turn away from it. And I think if we are turning away from what is going on around us at the moment, then that is no great win. Do you know, it is no great thing to be able to say right now, there's no pain in my life, or I'm not, I don't notice the pain around me. I think, I think of what Glennon Doyle says in this situation. It is no sane thing to be doing okay in an insane world. So I think there is this piece, which is perhaps even just the loss of innocence, right? That we no longer live in a time, and perhaps we never lived in a time where this should have been the case. Hunger is an issue, climate change is an issue, massive poverty and inequity of just about everything has always been an issue. Perhaps we never should have been able to turn a blind eye, but we did. But I feel like no more. I feel like there is this opportunity that has woken us up, but the loss of innocence that entails. Sheila says, I haven't seen my UK family for 2 years. I lost a friend to cancer and lost a friendship without knowing why. Alison says, a new team I joined in February have never met in person. Now the team is disbanded as of the 1st of April. I'm also seeing my mum twice in a year. Still grateful no deaths in our near family, but did lose a dear friend, non-COVID related. Taruna says, for me, it's not about the loss of life, but not being able to be face to face with those who would benefit a sister whose husband has a progressive condition. I would normally have gone and stayed with her. Yes, right. So you have a sister whose husband has a progressive condition and you would normally go stay with her, be there with her, but you can't. I hear you and I feel it. It's hard, isn't it, to not be able to be with people. Aisha says, I've lost physical touch. I love to hug and be hugged, especially from my mama. I miss her so much. I hear you. I feel you. Caroline says, watching my niece grow up in Spain via photos and Zoom instead of being able to visit her. Aisha says, my daughter Savannah turned 5 yesterday too. Happy birthday, Rose. Oh, yay. We've got two little bubbas at the same time. A year ahead, huh? Very good. Karen says, I had my first blood nephew born in November in Switzerland and COVID has meant I haven't got to meet him yet. He's already a completely different baby. Thank God for video technology at least, but not the same as a real life baby cuddle. Sarah, my brother is now in New Zealand all alone with serious cancer diagnosis and we don't know if we can get to see him. That's huge, Sarah. My heart goes out to you. Haley says, we lost 3 guys from our social circle in mid-2020 because of COVID. Lost my dad on the 17th of December, non-COVID. My sister lives in Spain and couldn't get home. Hubster was diagnosed with throat cancer on the 25th of December. We heard this morning that our friend died this morning of the same cancer. It's been total shit, but especially to go through all this without an actual hug. Haley, that's a lot, my love. That's a real lot. I'm sitting vigil beside you, my darling. There's not much more I can do but be here and know that you're not alone and that myself and the women of this community hear you and we pause with you and we hold you in our hearts. Annette says, I've lost my career because of COVID, but I found a new one because of living the change. It's allowed me to unearth my true purpose. I start teacher training in September. Thanks, Joe. Oh, Annette, that's great news. I'm sorry that you lost the career, but I'm grateful that you found your true purpose. That's wonderful. And Sarah says, not being able to see my mum, who has Alzheimer's, and spend some precious time with her before she completely lost her powers of speech. I know how much that hurt you, buddy. And I know how hard that was and continues to be. Ladies, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing what's going on for you. I think it's important that we allow space for grief, no matter how big or small, you know. It's very easy to wake up, if you're anything like me, wake up in victim archetype. Don't want to get out of bed. Get out of bed. You know, I do my morning writing and a bit of yoga if I have time. And by the end of that, I can get myself to feeling pretty good. And then I can come down here and I look at my calendar. I do what I do. I spend time with my kids. And I'm immensely grateful. I'm immensely grateful every day for so much. I live in a beautiful part of the world where spring has sprung and the daffodils are out and the crocuses are out and the bees are out. And, you know, it is beautiful. The warmth is coming and I feel that. I feel it. And I feel grateful that our organization is able to be of support to so many and that our organization continues to grow. And I'm grateful that I am a relatively wealthy woman and I am grateful that my family gets so much. I have such gratitude. But it's very easy to miss that there is also grief, you know. And if we don't acknowledge the grief, if we don't take a moment to be with it, then it's still in there. It's still in there. And if we just put more and more on it and more pressure to, you know, show up and do our thing and perform and be the happy, chirpy, go lucky, whatever we have to be, we feel the socially acceptable version of ourselves is. If we just put a lid on all of that, it's going to come out eventually, right? It'll come out. Interestingly, one of my girlfriends was sharing with me that she didn't process the grief of her relationship ending. You know, she just had to get on with it. She was a single mom, an amazing human being, and she's been extraordinary for her children, but she hadn't processed the grief of that and another death until her little doggy died. Her doggy died last year. And a big wave of grief came. And she said to me, Jo, it's not just about the dog. It's actually, there's a whole lot of other grief underneath this, you know, friend and also the relationship stuff that she hadn't let go of. And if we don't take those pauses, that's what will happen. And there's no problem with that, right? That's just how it goes. But recognizing if you've had a big year of grief, if you've had a big year of loss, giving yourself space to let it come out. Crying is good, right? It's good for us physiologically. It's good for the soul. Letting it come out and letting yourself be held in space by others is important too. Reaching out. So if you are not grieving, then reaching out to somebody who perhaps is. Connecting is my invitation for today. Who do you know who is having a tough time? And if you don't know anyone who's having a tough time, for the love of God, come into our Facebook group, the B1 Global Community, which is the closed Facebook group for our organization, and say, do you know, I'm here. Who's having a tough time? I want to be here. I'm here. I can listen. I can talk. We need to either, if we're going through it, mark it, allow it to come out, feel our feelings. Here at One of Many, we call this emotional hygiene, right? Just allowing yourself to feel those feelings. And then be able to then, because our grief and our joy and our love, you know, our anger and our fear and our resentment and our freedom and our turn on and our all of it, it all lives in the same place. As Brené Brown says, we cannot selectively numb our emotions. So if we put a lid on this stuff, right, we put a lid on all of it. We start to, if we don't allow space for grief, we tune ourselves out. We tune ourselves out from our joy. If we don't allow space for our loss, we tune ourselves out from peace. If we don't allow space for fear, if we don't allow space for anger, we don't allow space for the other. And we just end up in what I would call toxic positivity. Do you know, this faux positivity that we sometimes see with people who just live permanently by quotes on Instagram and, positive spins on things. Yeah, there's always something to be learned from everything, but sometimes the purpose of an emotion is just to feel it. And I think grief is one of those. Yes, grief is one of those feelings that can help us to redefine ourselves. I think if there were a lesson to grief, it is the lesson of who am I if not this relationship? Who am I if not this job? Who am I if not this version of myself that I have lost, right? It is the opportunity to redefine oneself, as who was it just said so beautifully on that front, Annette. So Annette has done a beautiful job. She's grieved her career and her loss of her career, but in doing so found who she is beyond that, purpose beyond that through living the change, which is a lovely possibility. But sometimes, if we spend too much time in a personal development environment, and frankly, I do because I lead one, we can get to that point where we put plaster over the cracks and pretend that everything is all right when it isn't. And all that we succeed in doing then is not only numbing off from the grief or numbing off from the ill feelings or the challenging feelings, but indeed just numbing off from everything. And I invite all of us to not do that, right? Yeah, thank you. There's some beautiful shares here. Lynn is saying, I'm acknowledging and sending so much love to all you beautiful women. So sorry for your losses and all your shares. That's it, Lynn. Hugs and cuddles for everyone who needs them, says Sarah. Some more beautiful things. Janet saying, I miss my dad who died in June from COVID, and I miss not being able to be with my brother and sister to grieve properly. I feel sad that one of my daughters and her partner have been furloughed for pretty much the whole year, and I worry we won't be able to scrabble enough money together to keep them going. But I'm eternally grateful for the love in all its forms that I have in my life. Beautiful, Janet. Ildiko says, my family is in Hungary. I haven't been able to see them for a year. Christmas was really hard, but I'm grateful we haven't lost anyone due to COVID. Yes, beautiful. Yeah. Zara says sometimes grieving for the loss of our pets allows us to access and release other submerged grief that we've still not processed. It's so very true. So very true. Alison says, I understand that. Coming to the 3rd anniversary of Dad's death, limited grieving allowed. Well, I would say let's throw the gates wide open on grief. Let's cry together. We haven't been able to have funerals for people. If we have, they've been on Zoom. Whenever it comes to something as big as grief, I like to take a note out of the cultures that do it well. There are many cultures that do grief well, but I look at, Arabic cultures where there's that incredible sound of women wailing that you hear from time to time when they're mourning a loss. And I just think that voice that it's given in that culture, in many aspects of Arabic culture, is so powerful. Yeah. God, we're bad at it in England and Australia and any other places I spend time. Even at our funerals where we try not to cry. Like, come on, let's do this. In Mexican culture, they have the International Day of the Dead. I love that. It's so important. So important. Jean says, my dad died in 1978. I still have moments of grief at things I can't ask or share with him. I can relate to that, Jean. There's been so many times over this last year where I've been, over on the floor here behind me, my workspace. That's my real workspace where I do my inner work between those 2 sofas. There's a little altar around the corner there that is behind this wall. That's where I do my inner work. And many times, I don't know how many dozens of times I've done a deep release meditation over this last year. Many. Probably close to 100, I don't even know, but a lot. And it's funny, I'll be letting go of some grief around something, some loss, and then bang, right there again is the loss of my babies. I've had 2 miscarriages, one of twins and one of a little jelly bean all by herself or himself. I never really knew. And bang, it comes out again, right? It's never fully gone. So I think that's the piece, right? That's the piece. Yeah. It's so challenging. Oh my goodness. Karen saying, my neighbor, 29 years old, has been diagnosed with liver and kidney cancer. She had her first baby in November. I don't know them very well as they only moved in last summer, but I'm really feeling it and want to be there for them. Karen, they're so lucky to have you there. Well done, darling. Well done. Aisha's friend was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and though doing okay on treatment, so devastated for her and her young kids. It's so tough. It is so tough, right? So ladies, today is one of those days where I wanted to hold the space for the other. Usually here on Lunch and Learn Live, you show up and I will hold the space, host, and create connections for you to be able to find empowerment and positivity and a new, lease. Today, on this National Day of Reflection here in the UK, whether we're just ahead or just behind annual milestones, COVID has been a part of our lives now for over a year. It will continue to be a part of our lives. And a lot of the changes that have been wrought because of this could possibly be part of our lives for who knows, the rest of our lives. There's a lot to be let go of and there's a lot to grieve. I truly, honestly believe that a healthy relationship with our emotions allows space for all of these, which is why I will happily show up here and share my emotions with you so that you know that I, like you, am a very emotional person. I choose to take the lid off it. I choose to take the lid off it in public. And I choose to invite into our space and into our community a safety around that. And if you wish to take the lid off your emotions here with us, please do. Please do share. Please do share with us. Because I do believe that sharing our emotions, yes, we need to grieve privately. Yes, we need to let go of anger privately, but sometimes being witnessed in them is a key part of that healing process. So I invite you to do that today. I invite you to perhaps take a moment to either journal or just go for a walk and reflect. I invite you to weep if you need to. I invite you to reflect if you need to. And I invite you to connect. I invite you to reach out to each other. And, you know, a big thank you to Marie Curie and the organization, the Marie Curie organization, foundation, who, you know, are spearheading this National Day of Reflection campaign, and reminding us that it's tough out there at the moment, and that being there for each other is really critically important. So my darlings, that's all I've got on that. I'd love to hear in the comment section what you're going to be taking away from today, what your commitment is to reflect, to grieve, to let go, and to connect with others. For those of you who are in our Living the Change community, do join me next Monday night with Tracy Evanishan, who is far more articulate on all of this than I could ever be. I remember speaking to Tracy when I first met her on Necker about her organization. She shared with me, she said, you know, the thing is at work, Jo, we're really good at celebrating the wins and hitting the milestones and celebrating the achievements, but we're really not good at loss. When we don't hit the milestones, we're not good when someone loses a family member. We're not very good at that in work, and we need to be more human at work. And Tracy does that at work, but not just at work. She's a stand for it in her life. She's writing a book about it at the moment. She's got some beautiful courses on it that she's developed, and I'm really excited that she's going to be joining us in the Living the Change community on Monday. So those of you who are in Living the Change, I look forward to spending that time with you on Monday evening at 8:00. And from my heart and my hearth to yours, I send a big squishy cuddle. Know that I am sitting vigil with you today especially, but every evening as I go to sleep, I send my love and prayers out into the world for anyone who is experiencing loss, because I think just knowing that there's someone sitting next to you is important. And whether I know you personally or not, my love and my prayers and my heart are with you today and every day. All right, my darlings. Lots of love to you all, and I'll see you next week on Lunch and Learn Live, where we will be, the good old empowerment message will be back again. We'll see you then, darlings. Bye-bye.